Okay, so store procedures are just like procedures. If you are familiar with programming, then that's what it is. A procedure is a special function or a block of code that will do something, and usually procedures do not return any data back. Okay, as if you are familiar with Visual Basic, that's exactly what a procedure does. Okay, I shouldn't say it doesn't return anything. It does return something back. Either is in SQL Server, it returns a value of 1 or 0 or some other numbers you can use just to check, to validate your procedure, make sure it's working correctly. Okay, but you can also return data back in a different way, and that's going through the parameters here. So as you can see, this syntax here, you see the two words out and put here. So the out means you can set a parameter so that that parameter can actually return the data back. Okay, it's like how you pass a parameter to a function or procedure, and you pass that as a by reference type, right? And then instead of returning that whole function or the data back, whatever that is being passed to the function or procedure, you can still access the data internally. So it's kind of doing exactly as that. So each of these parameters can return data back, or they don't have to, or they can't, depending on whether you have it set as read-only or output here. And you can also, as you can see, has the encryption too, right? You can also encrypt your script, just like how we did with the view. If you encrypt it, then you cannot no longer see the actual syntax in your code, and you can't retrieve it back. There's no undo either. Okay. The alter is exactly the same, just like you did the view, alter view. And this is also why it's important you don't want to encrypt your data. If you did, then it's really hard to go and back and alter the procedure. Okay. So this is alter. This is the creation of procedures. And so I'm going to go right into the SSMS, and we'll just write some really basic scripts in here. The syntax, as you can see, looks very similar. They have the same format as you have seen before with your with the view, right? Or with the with the view. So you say create view, the view name, and then the keyword as here, and then your syntax. Okay. Except with the view, you actually query data from a table. Procedure, you don't have to. Procedure can be just anything. Okay, and you don't. And so it doesn't matter, and you don't even save this procedure into a particular table either. It saves inside the database itself, but it does not. It's not bound to a particular table. Okay, unlike view. Views are bound to a table. So let's go into our studio. And for example, in the Adventures Works, you see that you have the programmability here. So notice again, functions and procedures are not bound to a particular table, so they're not inside a table, whereas views do. Okay. So here we have the store procedures in here. These are the system procedures here came with the database. And then we have, these are custom store procedures. Okay, store procedures sometimes have the short name called SPROCs, S-P-R-O-C-S. You see that as well. This means store procedures, or SP. It just means again store procedures. So when you create your script, you would use the acronym, the prefix of the SP or the USP here. The USP just means the user store procedures. Okay, it means you define yourself. So the function will have the same thing. Function will have the UDF, just a user defined functions, or UFN. Again, just by convention, you can call it whatever you want. It's just that when you put something like that in front of it, you know that, oh, that's a function, and that's a user function. It's a user defined function. So you can use a UFN or just UDF or user defined function. Just know that it's not a system function. Okay. So if you want to look at what it looks like, basically you can go here and go and then just select, right click, and script as create, just like how we do the query, and it will show you what it looks like in there. Because it's not encrypted, we're able to see what that procedure looks like. So all these stuff here are just the standard stuff, each of these batch. Just know that procedures and functions and views, they must retain in a single batch. So in other words, here's a procedure here, right? So it must be inside its own batch. You cannot have anything before or after it. If you do, then the IDE will let you know. But if you write it in a text file, then you won't know it until you run it. Okay, so usually you'll see that it's running its own batch. Okay, same thing with the view. So you have the create procedure. I think you can use the full name procedure, or you can just use the short name PROC. That's fine too, either way. And then the name of that procedure. Okay, again, you don't have to use the two name parts, but you just use the correct. Just the name itself is fine. Just the variable name follows the same rule for any table names and other variable names in the database. Okay, and then followed by, if you are receiving any or passing any parameters, you put them here, except you don't put the word declare in front of it. Okay, so we just put that in there. So this part, if you are familiar with the regular programming, it will be something like this. We'll just say, like in Visual Basic, you say sub, and then procedure, and then the name. Whatever function is fine too. Function, you get the the total, you pass parameters, right? So you say A as and you can say int type, and then B as Boolean or something. Okay, so these parameters and the procedure way, you don't wrap it inside a paren. I think you could. It's fine. You don't have to, but you don't have to put on there. I think just you'll see that it's not common to put in paren here. But anything comes before the word as here. Okay, so you put your parameters in here, just like in here. You separate each parameter with a comma, and you have to also specify the data type. And then remember how to declare your variable names with the @ symbol. Okay, so follow the same method here. Okay, so let's just go ahead and create a new session here, and we can create a very simple procedure. It doesn't have to be simple, complicated. You can write a procedure to retrieve data also if you want, right? So I have a sample I think I created today inside the Adventures Works database. We could write a very small script function, procedure to select some data from the table. So, for example, you have select something from, we could just pick any table here in the Adventures Work. The person, that person, it's easy, right? Person, that person. So with this statement here, from, it's your regular select statement, and it prints that data for you. So let's select every field, every record of all 19,900 of them from that table. And to create a view, we just put create view name, and then as that, right? Same thing with procedure. A very, very simple procedure, just say create. Again, you can use the whole word procedure or just proc. Okay, that's fine. I usually just use proc, and just be consistent when the way you code. So proc, give it a name SP for store procedure. You can also put a U in front if you want to put make that as a user defined, but SP is fine. Let's just say SP person person. Okay, and then just word as, and that's it. This is the simplest way to write a procedure. Okay, all it does is it will select the data from this table and it will display exactly like you do here. So next time when you write this, you want to select from this table instead of rewriting the whole thing, you just call this procedure and it gives you that. Right? It does the action for you, and you can call it anytime because it's reusable. If I run this now, okay, it's going to store inside the AdventuresWorks database, but not in any particular table. It's inside the programmability folder, and inside the store procedures, you should see one here. If it's not here, let's see, let me refresh this. Yeah, refresh that so you can see it's right here. This is the one. So we recreate inside that database, and then now you could just execute this command. It's a procedure, so you use some already, right? How we did, remember how we did this? SPC, the SP help, right? That's a store procedure. You can see that the built-in system procedure used the SP underscore something. This is how they do that in all the systems. So when you see that, it's a system procedure. For ours, we don't want to use that convention because you might be confused with the system procedures. Okay, so you execute by issuing the execute command. Again, this is execute for short, or you can execute just like procedure here, same thing, and you run that and you get that result, right? So you do the same thing, execute this procedure, okay, and then it will run that procedure for you, and you get the result back just like the select statement there, right? Very simple. And just like views, if you want to see the syntax, using the command line here, you could go sp help text, and then the sp person, and if you highlight that and run it, you'll see the source code just like you see with the view. Okay. And if you want to encrypt this script, then you can go up here. You can alter this script here, just like you did with the view. Everything stays exactly the same as the view, how you did that. The only difference is the word procedure here and what happens inside here. Okay, so if you alter that, basically you do the same thing. And the same reason with the procedure here. You alter because you want to make sure all the dependencies are retained. Okay, and also you want to keep that intact. And you can change the functionality of the procedure, but you want to make sure that it's retained. And so instead of just doing that, we could just say, now I want to have this with encryption. So we add the same place as we did before, just encryption. And then if I go ahead and execute this, it has a red line because it says I have more than one batch. So you put that, that should go away. Not sure why. Well, let's see. I'm going to select this and execute. So here we have it. It's now encrypted. And if I go and execute, I should still be able to run just like usual, like normal. I get the whole data back. And if I were to see that code and just say it's encrypted, you cannot get it back. Okay? So that's a really simple execution of this script. Now, again, I want to show you that there's no, as you can see, there's no return data back. Now, when you return something back as a regular function in terms of like programming, you usually assign this to a variable name, right? Because it's on the right side of the equal sign, whereas procedures are not. So if you want, but in the studio, it's a little bit different because you can also return something back even you're using a store procedure. So let's go back here, and I'm going to remove this encryption. We'll alter this again, and so we can see, it doesn't matter in this case, but I just don't want to change it anyway. So if I go and run this again to alter it, okay, nothing changes, still be the same. If you want to see what's returned, then you need to put a variable here, and to get the data. So I could do something like, well, let's see if this works. I'll declare a variable, call maybe R for return as int. The return is by default always return an integer value back. Again, the integer value is just taking the status of that procedure, whether it's successful or not. If it's successful, usually you get a number 1 return back. Okay, if it's an error, you get something else. It gives you an error number. So that number is referencing a particular error key in a chart. So let's just see if this returns something in the R. So you would say R is equal to that procedure. And then we want to print what the R is, so we can say print R. Okay. Just like all caps. So you want to run all these together and run it, right? It executes the script, because the script does is it select all the statements here. When you print, remember the print goes to your message. Okay, so the message returns a 0. I think, yeah, I think 0 is successful. I don't remember what those keys are. But you get a value, so it returns the number 0. Okay? And these are just some ideas that you can use to kind of debug your code. Because you can put a return statement in there in your script, so that when you reach a certain level, you return that value back, so you know that this line is successful, this is not. Okay? And once you put a return statement in there, then execution stops at that point and it returns the whole thing back. But by default, I guess it returns a 0. I don't remember what it was, but I thought it's something else. So 0 means there's no error. And just make sure that it's in the, if you print, it's in the message, and then not in the results. The result is in the select, right? We do a select statement, so returns data in the select. So let's just say again here, notice there's no return here. If I go back to this script here, I'm going to alter it, and I want to return something after this select statement is run successfully. Then I can say return, instead of 0, I can put 100 here. Just so I know that if it returns 100, that statement, select statement, is run successfully. Okay? And it will stop there. And any statements I have under that will be ignored. Okay, so let's go ahead and then alter the script procedure again. So just execute. And then now if I go back here and run this one more time, make this just 3 lines, I should get the result page as well as the message of 100. That's what I'm expecting. So let's go and run that. So the query looks good, and the return is 100. Okay, so let you know that with that value is returned, then that is successful. And then this is useful for debugging. So you move on to the next line of code. Okay, you keep moving down until you find the error or what that error is. Usually an error will be like a logical error. Syntax will crash it, so you know what that is. But a logical error will you can catch that by just putting flags in there. Okay. I think it has to be integer only. You can't put like, I'm not sure if it lets you can put a. It may not work. I'm curious. Let's just see. Char of 1, and we'll return char. Let's see. Alter that. Okay. And it does. Yeah. So it doesn't return. Right. So it has an error. So it has to be only integer type when you return it. And I have a chart somewhere to show you all the numbers, different numbers to return when you get an error. Like these, for example, give you a message 245. What that is, it's kind of like those error types. Okay. Okay. So that is the return is for. And just again, just let's just say I have here, let me comment this out, and I put another select statement here, so select maybe, you know, top 2 from a different table. Let's just get that from the person. What do we get from? Again, yeah, let's get person dot address table. Okay, so I comment this out. That means it's going to run 2 select statements, and so I have 2 results. So let's just go and alter that. And now I'm going to go and just execute this like we did. And R should return 0 because I didn't set anything up there. So you run this, you get 2 results. Okay, so here's one, and the second is here, right? 2 select statements. Just to show you that whatever you have in there will run all the way to the end of that procedure. So now if I were to return here, because this one is successful, execute in that order, it return 100, and then this line should be ignored because whatever is after the return statement will be ignored by the procedure, just like any function you do or any procedure you have in your the regular language, right? It will ignore the rest. So one more time, I'm going to go put the return back and alter the script, the procedure again. And if that's successfully, then I should not get the second select statement. Let's run this. Okay, so you can see I only have 1 results back. Okay, because it ignores that second statement. I'm not sure what that is. Oh, because I put I didn't change the data type. Should have been int. All right. So this is a very simple procedure. Now, if you want to pass data to the procedure, let's just say that I'm going to remove both of these here. Okay, we'll alter the statement here, and instead of selecting, you know, all of them, what if I just want to select n number of returns, right? So I want to do something like top 10. Okay, what if you just want that, right? So you can put that here, and if you alter this, you run it, you should get only just those 10. Oh, I put it all there, so let me just put another statements up here, and I won't use the declare R, just run the execution. Okay, so you run this, you should get only 10 rows back, right? And so with the store procedure, you can change this every time. You can make this dynamic as a dynamic variable, so that when you call this procedure, you can pass the parameter, say I don't want 5, I don't want 10, or I don't want n number of returns. Okay, so you put that into variable name. So you can say here in this procedure, right above the keyword as up here, you can declare a variable name called maybe max as int type. If there's only one, you have to put a comma. If you put more than one, you can put a comma to separate each of those parameters. So this one takes a parameter called max, and then instead of 10, I'll put select max. So whatever that max is will be assigned. And if I go and alter the statements here, okay, oops. Okay, got something here. What's going on? 5 start 2 at max. Okay, maybe I should put a put a paren here. We need to put that in paren. Okay, let's try again. I guess you get confused. So put on in a wrap in a paren, and alter that again. So now you can pass a parameter to this procedure to get that many returns. Okay. Notice if I forgot to put that in there, forgot to put that parameter there, if I just call as it was before. If I do that, I get an error. It's expecting a parameter to that procedure. Okay, just like if you create a functional procedure and you don't pass the parameter, it's going to generate an error, requires that. And the reason is because it didn't put any default values. If you did, it would be okay too, but we didn't, so it requires that. So now we need to pass the data to this procedure here. Now, the tricky part is that usually when you call a functional procedure in a regular function language, you put that inside a paren here like this, right? But in SQL Server, you don't do that. You just put a space after it. Okay? Your first parameter. If you have a second parameter, you put a comma, and then you put a second parameter, and so on. Okay? So just make sure you don't wrap with it within a paren. If you do that, it's going to have an error. It won't execute. So just put a space or spaces, and then that first parameter. It could be a static number, constant number, or it could be coming from a variable name. We'll do that in a minute. So this 5 is the first parameter. Usually there are other ways, but usually the order is important, just like any function you use in your code. So the 5 is going to pass to this max, and then the max will go here. So we say select top 5. Okay. So if I click this and execute, I should get only the first 5 from that. And you can also do this, declare a variable name called maybe max as int. You just set that to 10, and then you pass in the max. You pass in the variable name, right? So it's just another way. You have a placeholder, pass data over, and then you would do that. And if you execute, you make sure you have to execute both of them, right? And then you run this, you get 10 in the result, 10 rows. And if you want to do a little bit more fun, you can set this as a random number, or you can get that data from another select statement, right? So you could do something like this. You can say, you can declare another variable, for example, declare total int, and you can say set total. If you remember this from last week, right? Select, you say count from person.address table. Right? So you get a count from that table. How many there are, it doesn't really matter. Oh, address, and then select the total from that count. Total count. So you put total here. And then you pass that total to your procedure, and then you return the result. Okay? So you see that I pass in there. That person, that address has, is that many? Yeah, it has 19,614. Okay, and then 19,614 goes here, pass that to max, you pass that into here. You can do that, you can just pass the total directly to this parameter. It's fine. I'm just showing you that you can pass parameter from one to another and to another and to another. Just to make sure that's correct, you have 19,614. If you select this from this person, you should get 19,614 here. It's pretty tiny when you see it. Okay? Did I go too fast? Good? Okay. Okay, if you want to pass two parameters, then you can just put here. Oh yeah, well, let's see, one more thing. If I said max int, okay, equals, I just said 10. Okay, so that's the default value for 10, for max. If I don't supply any parameter, then it will take that 10 as a default value and run the statements. So this is by supplying default value. You put that in here. But if I pass a parameter there, it's going to override this 10 with the one that's coming in from that parameter from the procedure call, right? So if I go and then go back and alter this procedure again, and then execute, then down here, when I run this, if I'm just going to click that part, I'm not passing any parameters. Okay, you see that it pulls the data out, but only 10 of them. So you provide a default value just in case that if you don't supply any parameter, then that procedure is still run. Okay. But if I run this with a parameter, like here, then it's going to override that 10. It gives me back to that 19,614. It override it. So far, so good? All right.